Ever since I can remember, I always felt like there was something different about me, something wrong. I had a hard time making friends, and everything seemed to be so much harder for me than it looked like it was for other people. Going into high school, I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, but even with counseling and medication, I still felt like something was wrong. Going into college, I burned out completely. I stopped going to all of my classes, and I failed and lost my scholarship. My parents were furious. They demanded an explanation for why I threw away this opportunity, and I didn't know. I couldn't give them an answer. All I knew was that it felt like I could barely muster up the energy to even exist anymore. They enrolled me in an intensive therapy program where they thought I might have bipolar or borderline personality disorder. I graduated from the program and I kept going to counseling, but I was still struggling to keep up with the demands of adulthood. About a year or two ago, I started seeing TikToks on my For You page talking about how autism presents in women. I didn't know much about autism at the time. I knew about the stereotypical symptoms used to diagnose young boys, but I had no idea what it looked like in women my age. Every TikTok I watched seemed to describe me to a T. I started obsessively taking tests to see if this might be the answer I'd been looking for. Around the same time, I started getting back into the Littlest pet shop community. I was watching Izzy's video, a deep dive into Littlest Pet Shop, and I saw this comment. LPS videos literally taught me how to play with toys. I'm not kidding. Little autistic me would just line them up and not touch them until I watched a video and was like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to do. Okay. And then I just mimicked the video word for word. This comment really made me stop to think about my experience with LPS in this new perspective. I now realize that LPS was and is one of my special interests. In today's video, I want to talk about what LPS meant to me as an undiagnosed autistic child and about my experience getting officially diagnosed. As soon as I got my first Littlest pet shop, I was obsessed. Every time I went to the store with my dad, I begged for a new one. I loved sorting and organizing them and admiring them. Sometimes I would lay my head on my desk and just listen to the taps. I became so obsessed with them that my own collection didn't suffice, so I turned to the internet to consume even more LPS content. And then I found LPS Tube. One of the first videos I ever watched was LPS Skittles' hair salon video. Just like the comment I showed before, something clicked for me. I started reenacting that video and branching out into my own play. I've since learned that I've always been a huge scripter. Scripting is defined as the use of scripted language or repetitive phrases by individuals with autism as a way to communicate, express themselves, and navigate social situations. This was huge for me as an awkward little kid. I was scared to talk to other kids, so I would practice and rehearse my conversations over and over with my LPS to try to use at school. Then when I got home, I'd reenact the conversations over and over to try to pick apart what worked and what didn't. Play is super important for all children to interpret and analyze the world around them, and LPS was super helpful for me to make sense of all of these social cues I was struggling so much with. It also helped me understand and try to move through upsetting events that I didn't know how else to process. I struggled to talk about my feelings with my parents, and I usually just let everything bubble up until I had a meltdown. Making LPS videos about things that happened to me was a huge emotional outlet for me, and it helped me deal with those feelings in a healthier way. It is probably a good thing those videos were lost to time, though. LPS also helped me play with other kids, too. My best friend and I often spent all of our time together playing with LPS, often reenacting videos we'd watched or making new stories up. I think it was easier for me because it was more scripted and predictable. Especially when LPS were at their peak, it was much easier to make friends by just whipping out my Crown Royal bag full of LPS at the playground. This did make it harder for me though when other kids started to outgrow playing with toys. What once was my social crutch was now holding me back. This is pretty personal, but I started going through puberty really young. I started wearing training bras in the 3rd grade, and I got my period when I was only 10 years old. They didn't even have trash cans for pads in the bathroom. This was super isolating and scary for me. I didn't understand why my body was changing and different from everyone else. I was already different enough. I was terrified when the adults in my life kept telling me, "Oh, you're a woman now." I was still just a kid. I think this really made me cling onto my LPS even harder. I was desperate to hold on to my childhood despite what my genetics had in store for me. My LPS were a big comfort to me into my early teen years as I navigated these changes. Once I got to the 8th grade, my peers started talking about sex, drugs, and alcohol, and I was woefully unprepared. While my friends were going to parties, I was at home playing with my LPS. I started to hate how much I didn't fit in, and I sold most of my collection. There were some that I really couldn't bear to part with, even as embarrassed as I was about it, and I shoved them in a box. Little did I know that 10 years later I would open that box again and fall right back into my love for LPS. Autistic special interests are very intense, specific interests that autistic people have. They are fundamental to many of our lives. They can help us to navigate day to day life, recharge away from an overwhelming world, allow us to connect with other people, and provide us with a sense of familiarity so often lacking in the chaotic world around us, like a built in coping strategy our brains have given us. Special interests are super varied. Anything can be somebody's special interest. Some people have special interests in certain animals, in trains or other vehicles, in video games, characters, historical events, space. The list goes on. I have noticed that there are some special interests that seem to be pretty common, and I have my own personal theories on what makes something more likely to become a special interest, including LPS. For one, collecting is very common with special interests. When you love something so much, you really can't just have one, and that's the whole point of LPS, to collect. There are thousands of designs, and even after the hours and hours I've spent scrolling on LPS merch, I still find new LPS that I've never seen before. They're also easy to catalog and sort, which is something a lot of autistic people, like myself, really enjoy doing. There's also just so much LPS content out there. I've had a few special interests in my life on more obscure topics, and it can be so frustrating to not be able to get merch or even watch videos of people talking about it. LPS, on the other hand, has tons of opportunities for this. Of course, there's the toys themselves, but also clothes, plushies, guidebooks, even this LPS blanket that I sleep with every night. There's also, of course, tons of online content on LPS. I know for me, a big part of engaging with my special interests means watching videos and reading up on it, and LPS Tube has endless videos to watch for whatever mood I might be in. I also read through the LPS subreddit at least twice a day. I think having such a big online presence also helps me socially, giving me the chance to interact with other people that have the same interests that I do. My friends and family do listen to me talk about it, but they definitely have their limits. One of the ways that my autism affects me the most is my sensory experience. I struggle with getting easily overstimulated, but I also experience understimulation. For me, LPS is the perfect in between. I love the sounds LPS make walking on a table, and I love tapping them on different surfaces to hear the different sounds. I also just love the feel of an LPS in my hand or in my pocket, and I like to use them as fidget toys in my daily life. I like that it's a pretty calm special interest. I also love Five Nights at Freddy's, for example, but if I'm overstimulated, it does not help me to watch a Let's Play with all the screaming and the jump scares. LPS videos, on the other hand, are much quieter, and one of my favorite ways to calm down after a rough day is just organizing or going through my collection. Another way my autism affects me is my discomfort with being perceived. I struggle with making eye contact with people during conversations, I get anxious when I'm the center of attention, and I even have a hard time picking out outfits sometimes for fear of being too noticeable. I think this is why I really gravitated towards making LPS videos as a kid, because I had the opportunity to express myself and be creative without having to worry about acting in front of a camera or looking the right way. It's a much more comfortable way to put yourself out there. I guess it's kind of like masking, but without having to put in all the energy. My mascot always looks the way I want it to. Like I said before, special interests are usually calming and regulating. And for me, LPS is my most effective special interest at doing this. I think for me, I like that LPS is childish and innocent. Personally, I have a lot of trauma, and bringing myself into a younger headspace is very comforting and healing to me. I have plenty of shows and music that I love that I can't watch or listen to when I'm upset because they touch on triggering topics. It's been very helpful for me to have LPS to turn to in these times. I don't have to think about the violence and pain in the world when I'm playing with my LPS. Healing your inner child is really one of the most effective things that I think you can do to bring yourself more happiness, and I think that's why so many special interests are stereotypically childish things. So, it turns out that getting diagnosed with autism as an adult is kind of hard. For me, I didn't have a regular psychiatrist or therapist to give me a referral, so I hopped onto Google to find doctors near me who do testing. And I live in a city with millions of people, so I thought I was going to be able to scroll through pages and pages of options. And there were pages of places that only test children. I found a whopping two doctors in my city that test adults, and only one of them took my insurance. So I finally worked up the courage to give them a call, and they set me up for an appointment. And the soonest opening was 9 months away. That's a whole pregnancy. Luckily, they were able to squeeze me in sooner, but the whole process was kind of insane, and I definitely understand why so many people stick with self diagnosis. When it came to the actual testing, it started with a phone consultation with the doctor. She asked why I was looking into testing for autism, asked about what I struggle with, my interests in daily life, and about my childhood. And then she sent me two forms, one for me to fill out about myself, and one for me to give to a close friend or family member to fill out about me. There were around 100 questions asking about my social habits, alcohol and drug use, if I can be angry or violent, and my general disposition. I was terrified to see what my friend would say about me and how they perceived me. Then the next week, I went into the office for my appointment. I checked in and waited for a few moments before the doctor came out. This was a different doctor than the phone call. She brought me into a little office and asked me similar questions, but more in depth, asking about sensory issues, what foods I like and don't like, asking about what working is like for me, stimming behaviors, what my relationships are like. She asked about my interests, and I told her about Littlest Pet Shop. She said that she thought they were cute and that her daughter used to collect them. I even brought one with me to the appointment, but I was too afraid to take it out of my pocket. Next, she had me take an assessment on a tablet. It had a ton of questions, maybe 200 if I remember right. It had similar questions to the ones she asked, as well as some random ones like, is your favorite sporting event the long jump? At first I thought, maybe that's really common among autistic people, but I looked it up afterwards, and I guess they put those sorts of things in to make sure you're actually reading the questions. After that, she had some cards with pictures and patterns. Some of them she would give me a word, and I'd have to tell her which picture matched the definition best, and other ones with patterns, I'd have to tell her what the next step would be, or what was missing from the pattern set. I guess it was some sort of IQ test. I started getting frustrated towards the end trying to pick the right answer, but the doctor was really kind. She told me to try my best and not stress too much about it. They let me know that they would give me a call in 2 weeks with my results. Leaving the appointment, I was nervous and stressed. I was confused about some aspects of the testing, and I didn't understand how they would be able to tell if I was autistic or not. I was worried that I didn't act correctly. Did I mask too much? Did I not mask enough? I was worried that I skewed the results because I was hoping that I was autistic. Not because I wanted to be disabled, but I just wanted an answer. 2 weeks later, the doctor called. She broke down the different parts of the test. She talked about the surveys my friend and I filled out and explained that the results suggested that autism was likely. She talked about the IQ test and said that I was brilliant. And she talked about the interview with the doctor and the test I took on the tablet, and that my scores there also indicated that autism was likely, as well as PTSD. She let me know that she would be officially diagnosing me with autism spectrum disorder and PTSD. She said she didn't think I would necessarily fit a diagnosis of depression and anxiety as well, and that those symptoms were likely a result of unaccommodated autism. She sent an email with my results, recommendations for accommodations at school and work, and also references for counselors and support groups. Overall, I feel positively about my testing experience. I was so nervous going into it, but it was much easier than I thought it would be, and it was validating to finally have a diagnosis that explained my experience so well. Since getting diagnosed, I've given myself the freedom to engage with my special interests without worrying so much about what other people think. It has been so healing and freeing to collect Littlest Pet Shop again and to participate in the LPS community. Sometimes I stay up too late watching LPS videos, or I spend too much money on a juicy eBay lot. But all in all, coming back to LPS has made my life so much better. My coworkers ask me every day which LPS I brought to work with me. My sister helps me make accessories, and my dad even has told me that my video quality has improved since I was a kid. I've even worked up the courage to get tickets for LPS Con, and even though normally I would be terrified to go to somewhere I've never been before, I'm actually so excited to get the chance to meet other people who love LPS as much as I do. If you think you might be autistic, I want to encourage yourself to try and treat yourself with love and compassion. It is not easy being autistic. The whole reason I even got tested was to try and get accommodations at work that ended up being denied anyway. Unfortunately, the world is not built for neurodivergent people, and it's really easy to beat yourself up about it. Now that I've been diagnosed, I'm trying not to be so negative about it. I am well aware of all the ways that my autism makes my life harder. But going forward, I want to learn to accommodate those things and appreciate all the ways that my autism makes me better. I'm highly empathetic, I'm an honest person, I'm a hard worker, and I think my special interests make me more interesting. My advice to you is, when you have the ability to accommodate yourself, do what you can. Stand when you need to, get that weighted blanket and those noise-canceling headphones, and embrace your special interests. Whether you're autistic or not, just remember that you are unique, you're doing your best, and the world is a better place with you in it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Happy Autism Acceptance Month, and I'll see you next time. Bye!